Today, we would like to take a closer look at a topic that has been intensively discussed in the media recently. It concerns the desire of the American president to acquire the island of Greenland. Despite all current skepticism surrounding this topic, we believe it will hold great geopolitical and economic significance in the near future and therefore deserves a more detailed examination. First, we will take a closer look at the history of this island and then analyze the current situation regarding Greenland. Greenland is the largest island in the world. Geographically, it is located in North America, but politically it is part of the Kingdom of Denmark and holds the status of an autonomous territory while having preserved its unique culture and traditions. The history of the island stretches back more than 4,500 years, beginning with the first settlements of the Inuit and Scandinavians. Its discoverer is considered to be the Norwegian seafarer Erik Thorvaldsson, also known as Erik the Red, who was banished from his homeland to Iceland for murder. In search of a refuge, he set his ships in the year 982 toward a land that was said to be clearly visible from the Icelandic mountains in good weather. According to tradition, he named the island Greenland, meaning green land. One version suggests that the south of Greenland was indeed quite warm during the time of the Vikings and had green vegetation along its coasts. The settlements of the colonists existed on the island for approximately 500 years. In the year 1260, the colonists swore loyalty to the Norwegian king. In exchange for the payment of tributes, he promised to supply them with all necessities. During this time, the Vikings reached the American continent, discovering it long before Columbus. In the 15th century, the colony was abandoned either due to the cold or a plague epidemic. Scientists believe that the Eskimos, or Inuit as they are also called, began settling on the island as early as the 13th century. Their relations with the Norwegians were quite hostile, and it is believed that their raids on the colonists were also one of the reasons for the latter's withdrawal. In the year 1536, Norway and all its overseas possessions entered into a union with Denmark, which declared the island its territory and began its recolonization in the 17th century. After the dissolution of the Union in the year 1814, Norway became an independent state, but Greenland remained part of Denmark. From this moment on, the island began to attract American interest. History shows that the United States' interest in Greenland is by no means new. This strategy stretches back more than a century. In the year 1823, the so-called Monroe Doctrine was adopted by the Americans. According to the Monroe Doctrine, the United States declared its opposition to European colonial expansion in North and South America and affirmed the extension of American interests to these regions. Although Greenland was not directly mentioned in the doctrine, it laid the groundwork for American territorial ambitions in this region. Later, in the year 1868, William Seward, then Secretary of State of the United States, sought to acquire Greenland and Iceland. Reports indicate that negotiations with Denmark over a purchase for $5.5 million were nearly concluded. However, an official offer was never made. In the year 1910, the U.S. ambassador to Denmark, Maurice Francis Egan, discussed the possibility of acquiring Greenland. Although this idea found support in Washington, no official negotiations took place. A very interesting historical date is the year 1917. As an exception to the Monroe Doctrine, the United States recognized Denmark's right to Greenland in exchange for the acquisition of Danish West Indies. The Treaty of the Danish West Indies, Officially, the convention between the United States and Denmark concerning the cession of the Danish West Indies was a treaty by which sovereignty over the Virgin Islands in Danish West Indies was transferred from Denmark to the United States in exchange for a sum of $25 million in gold. According to the Americans, this agreement was aimed at strengthening American control over the Caribbean basin and protecting the Panama Canal. As we can see, as early as 1917, the Panama Canal was already mentioned as an object of American interest. The next notable historical moment in the island's timeline is the year 1941. When German troops marched into Denmark, the United States landed armed forces in Greenland to ensure the security of the territory. Greenland became an important American military asset during the Second World War, with the United States establishing two major Air Force bases. When recounting this historical phase of Greenland's story, the name Henrik Kaufmann must absolutely be mentioned. He was the Danish ambassador to the United States and arrived in Washington shortly before the start of the Second World War in 1939. Without a mandate from his home country, Henrik Kaufmann single-handedly negotiated an agreement with the United States that marked the beginning of the American presence in Greenland. It was a highly dramatic diplomatic episode, one that has even inspired a film today titled Our Man in America. In the post-war period of 1946, American interest in Greenland intensified. President Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million in gold bullion for the island. Senator Owen Brewster, at the time, called the purchase a military necessity for the defense of the Arctic. The transaction did not go through at the time. Here again, we see the strategic interest of the United States in the Arctic. Between the United States and Denmark, both NATO member states, a defense agreement for Greenland has been in place since 1951. It cemented Washington's position on the island and gave the Americans the right to build and maintain military bases. Already in Article 2 of the treaty, it was stipulated that the American flag should be raised on the territory of Greenland, and so it was officially planted on the island. Through this treaty, the Americans hold considerable military authority, which is why many experts wonder why Trump's current initiative is necessary, given that the Americans already possess significant powers on the island. In 1953, the United States constructed Thule Air Base in northern Greenland as part of Operation Blue Jay. The base became an important hub during the Cold War, stationing approximately 10,000 American soldiers. In 1979, Greenlanders voted overwhelmingly in favor of self-governance, leading to the creation of a local parliament. This was a turning point in Greenland's history, giving the island control over areas such as education, healthcare, fisheries, and the environment. In 1985, Greenland withdrew from the European Economic Community, reflecting its unique economic and political needs. This step further cemented Greenland's autonomy within the Kingdom of Denmark. It was one of the first withdrawals of a territory from the European structure. After leaving the European Economic Community, Greenland remained part of the NATO structure through Danish membership. In 2009, the Self-Governance Act was passed in Greenland. This act recognized Greenlanders as a distinct people with the right to self-determination under international law and paved the way toward full independence. On the 18th of August 2019, then-President Trump formally expressed his offer to purchase the island of Greenland. It's essentially a large real estate deal, said US President Donald Trump when commenting on his desire to buy Greenland. In February 2024, Greenland officially declared independence as its ultimate goal. On the 22nd of December 2024, incoming US President Donald Trump declared that the possession and control of Greenland by the United States was an absolute necessity for national security and freedom in the world. As we see it, today's interest of Mr. Trump in Canada and the island of Greenland must be viewed in the light of the geostrategic competition between the United States and China, as well as between the United States and Russia. In all American strategic documents on the Arctic, two threats to US national security are named: China and Russia. It is also noteworthy that while Trump's statements in 2019 were aimed at the economic interests of the United States, the approach has since shifted, and today the focus is on American national security interests. And if one looks at the world map not from the usual perspective, but from above, looking down at our globe, it becomes clear that since the development of ballistic missiles and strategic bombers, in the event of a military conflict, all such missiles and aircraft would fly not over Europe, but via the shortest route, the Arctic. That is precisely why, during the Cold War, significant military contingents were stationed in this direction by both sides to build an effective defense. Today, those contingents have been substantially reduced, but at present military capacity is once again being significantly expanded on all sides. This part of our planet's map holds not only military, but also strategic economic significance, due to the natural resources discovered on the island. With global warming, access to these resources is becoming increasingly easier. It is also important to note that the island's geographic location plays an essential role from a logistical perspective as well, since many sea routes pass through this area, and numerous communication cables lie on the seabed below. We all know that China possesses vast reserves of rare earth elements, but such deposits have also been discovered in Greenland. The Americans are deeply concerned about China gaining access to the resources and transport potential of the Arctic. China today is one of the few countries ready to transition from the exploration of mineral resources to their deep-sea extraction in the vast expanses of the world's oceans. China is currently the #1 power in the maritime economy, the leading nation in shipbuilding, port handling capacity, maritime transport, container shipping, fishing, and aquaculture. In all of these areas, China is today the world leader. Russia, on the other hand, is the undisputed leader in the Arctic region. It has the longest coastline in this region, which projects Russian sovereignty claims over vast maritime areas. Russia possesses the world's largest fleet of icebreakers, enabling it to carry out not only military plans, but also economic projects in this region. The Arctic region covers approximately 1/6 of the Earth. The Arctic states are Russia, the United States, Canada, Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, and Finland. Naturally, each of these countries seeks to protect its interests in this promising region. Economic and military tensions exist here on a constant basis, though they have not yet escalated to the radical levels seen, for example, in the Middle East. Moreover, all of these countries are members of the Arctic Council, an intergovernmental organization aimed at reducing tensions. A certain potential for tension within this organization arises from the fact that all its members, with the exception of Russia, are part of the North Atlantic Alliance, NATO. In 2019, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo challenged Russia's claims to Arctic resources and exclusive rights over the Northern Sea route. A series of US sanctions aimed to deny Moscow access to technologies and equipment for developing the polar region and advancing projects in this area. The United States does not recognize Arctic seas as internal waters and has not ratified the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which allows states to claim exclusive rights. In October 2022, the United States adopted a new strategy for developing its presence in the Arctic through 2032. This strategy includes plans to strengthen U.S. military presence in the far north, naming Moscow and Beijing as the primary threats. As we can see, the topic of acquiring the island of Greenland goes far beyond a local question. Unlike the time of the Cold War, we live today in a very remarkable era, in which many political questions can be resolved relatively quickly at a personal level. We hope that this will serve as a positive factor in resolving all contentious issues, taking all parties into account and preserving peace in the world.